Let's see. See who's on Jabber. I don't see anyone on Jabber.
Okay. I hear something now.
You hear me now?
Now I do.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Did you select something or it just came through?
I took my headset off.
So it's your audio possibly, huh?
It's very possible. There's a lot of evidence that that's the case.
Okay, you missed because everyone volunteered and you didn't hear any of them.
All right. Huh. Okay.
So I said attack Torless.
Torless is the man.
He takes great minutes.
Okay.
Yes, as long as he's not at the mic.
Sorry, can't do.
What? Torless refused.
Okay.
It's one prezo here, man. Sandy, any chance you can pull it off for us?
We can't fly the plane without a note taker. All right, surely someone really, really badly wants to take notes. I can help augment it.
She may drop at any time, so she might have to roll too. It's crazy hours for her. Tim, what's your drop time? Tim? Shit.
Oh, we'll be done before then.
Yeah.
We'll be. We'll be done. We should be done in 30 to 40 minutes. We should.
It's the Jake show.
Yeah.
Will be horribly engaging. You'll be so engaged you'll have trouble typing.
Tim, if you could take notes till 4, till the top of the hour, we'll take it from there. Okay. All right. I think that sounds like Tim has volunteered. At least until 4 o'clock UTC. Or, well, I thought you were in UTC, but anyway. Greg, you think are we ready to start, Greg?
Yeah, let's go. We got Tim.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim. No? What did I miss?
Jake thinks Tim is saying no.
I'm saying no. He can't do it. All right.
Well, I'll be driving slides. Greg, do you have any interest in?
I'll just do notes here. I got them.
Okay. All right. Do you guys see my agenda slide?
No, we see nothing right now.
All right. Let me retry that.
Yeah, my screen sharing dropped a couple times on Wednesday morning. So just be aware of it. I'm like talking along and suddenly nobody saw it.
Okay. I thought I had something up. Okay. I am publish screen. Yes, I want to really publish screen.
Your name's up. It's trying to do something.
Okay. How about that?
Boom. There we go. We got it. Your agenda's there.
Okay. I think we can get started then. Okay. As always, this is the note well. Please note it well. And anything you say can and will be recorded for posterity. Here's our agenda. It's pretty light. I'm just going to go through updates on the current drafts and current working group docs. And Jake is going to go through his drafts, his three multicasts to the browser drafts.
Hey, Lenny, I think we're not seeing the slides.
Really?
It's just black right now. There it is. That worked.
All right. I went to presentation mode, and as soon as I did that, that happened.
Yeah, I think what I did here, I just went to full screen, the green dot on the browser. If you're sharing in the browser, that was my best bet on Wednesday.
Okay.
It just goes full screen in the browser itself, doesn't take over the, up.
Okay. All right, then I'll start from scratch. So everyone must see the note well and note it well.
Yep.
Now the agenda.
There we go.
Cool. Anybody have anything to add to the agenda?
Let me just say something, Lenny, because this came up. Hopefully there's a lot of overlap between people here and those taking place in routing area as well. So, you know, beer is some aggressive work moving forwards on a whole different replicating model for networks as a whole, so internet. And in the charter, we have may pursue a V6 native option. What we've really discovered is there is no real native way to do this. The question is, do we need an end cap in 6? And we've got a requirements draft right now that is what the working group is focused on, looking at what are we trying to do that's potentially unique in 6, or is there anything unique we need to do in 6 to provide transport of beer? So please just pay attention, look at that. Operator input would be fantastic. So I can send the draft to the list if you want, so you guys know what we're looking at, and chime in and bring your colleagues if you can. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, just Greg, keep us updated on anything you think that is pertinent to us. Where are we in terms of operational concerns for beer networks? Are we approaching? Are we there yet, or is it still a ways off?
I'm sorry, what was the specific question about?
Operational considerations for beer networks.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't say a ways off. I know there is hardware in labs right now that operators are evaluating. So my expectation is we will probably hear about some real live deployments, possibly this year, but certainly next year. From there, hopefully we get some BCPs, some pressure put on this group. Go, hey, there's some things we need to do to make sure we either deploy correctly, transition correctly, interface with existing services correctly, whatever it may be. But I'm hoping we'll look to this group to provide some operator guidance.
Great. Okay, moving right along. Here are the active working group docs. Actually, the Dryad draft is, since last meeting, is now RFC 8777. Congrats, Jake, for getting that moved along pretty quickly. The deprecate ASM draft is at the RFC editor queue. It's been there a little while. Hopefully we're getting close, but that should be hopefully by IETF109, that will be an RFC as well. The multicast problems draft, that is still, we are eagerly awaiting revisions. I think 2 IETFs ago, maybe, was it Singapore? There was, Mike met with, I believe there was some security area concerns. And Mike was working on revisions and getting out that final revision based on the final comments and what was agreed to. Mike, are you here? Are you out there, Mike? I'm not seeing you on the list.
Yeah, I don't see him on the list either.
Warren, I believe you are a co-author of that draft. Do you have any comments on what's going on with that draft and how soon we might see that final revision?
No feedback, no hands. There we go.
No,
Warren's trying to talk.
know
Got
that
it.
we need to do something with it soon. I believe that, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we'll get it done in the next couple of weeks, but we've been hoping to do that for a long time and kept getting sidetracked.
Okay. Yeah, it seemed like Mike had the cookie on that one. So if you want to encourage him to get it across the finish line, so that we can start working on the solutions.
To do it, he'll turn around and be like, "What are you doing? Why don't you write it?" And so I'm being careful not to do that. But yeah, we should really, get it done. Sorry.
It's a Mexican standoff there. So, okay. Next was the data center deploy draft. Also, Mike, it looked like Mike was on the lead on that one as well. I guess we don't have Mike to talk about that one, but basically that went through last call last year. Not quite enough support in the first last call. We had a second last call, and from that, Jake a couple months ago gave some good reviews, and Jordan had provided some additional reviews as well that were pretty similar to what Jake had to say, which was essentially, this is a valuable draft. There's some good stuff in it, but there's lots of room for editorial improvements. Kind of wordy, could be much. The text could be improved significantly. So, last IETF, Greg, did you get a chance to read this one as well? That Greg and Dino were.
Yeah, I have. I'm in the middle of a review. I will be sending that off to the list.
Okay. All right. So maybe we'll decide on list, but my inclination is to send this back to the authors to maybe, rewrite. I believe, if my recollection is correct, this was written for a different purpose, and then it started out as a survey, and then it evolved into an informational draft. And I think it probably has remnants of its earlier purpose in it, and maybe just a clean slate and starting from scratch on this draft might be the best way. But maybe we'll take that to the list and get feedback from the authors. The last one, any other thoughts on this draft? Anybody else have anything to say about this draft? Okay. And then the last draft is the Yang models. Sandy, any updates? This has been out for a little while. Is Sandy still there?
Yep.
Let's
Got her. Go ahead, Sandy. Oh, you just vanished. There we go. Now she's in.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just updated the Yang model at March, but I think there are still some parts need to be improved. So after that, I'd like to ask for Yang doctor's review again.
So you believe that it's ready for Yang doctors now? Another Yang doctor review?
Maybe next version.
Oh, next version. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Moving right along. And then the other three drafts that are active, Jake's going to cover now. So let me turn things over to Jake. Jake, do you want to drive since or should I bring up your slides and drive for you?
I think you should drive, Lenny. Just the
Okay.
risk of hopping back and forth can get a bit strange, and I don't know if they've given those privileges to everyone. We've all been chair driving.
All right. Let me stop. I have to move from the.
Oh, Holland says he's requesting a video. You got him? Maybe if he can do it, that'd be great. Oh, we got Lenny's screen.
Let's see. It is one of my Firefox screens here. Here it is. Okay. Yeah, let me see here. I want to go in inception mode here. I tell you what, Jake, unfortunately, I launched it as a browser window, and if I bring that browser window up, I'm afraid I may lose the MeetEcho browser window. Or inception mode. Do you want to try and drive, Jake?
I can try. I haven't done it yet. Let's see.
The good news is we're not going to have to go back and forth because you are last.
Okay. So let's see. Is my video and screen coming in? I don't mind doing inception mode. That's all fine.
No, we just see the MeetEcho.
I tried to enter the screen queue.
Here we go. Approved.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
titled. It's showing gray, and the next is usually the screen. Come on.
Let's see. Awesome.
There we go.
Okay, and
We got a screen within a screen within a screen
maybe
within a screen.
video.
Yeah, there's
Jeez.
inception
Awesome.
mode. I believe.
All right, and does it work if I present mode? Or does
There it
that
is.
Perfect.
Yes?
Out.
Oh wait.
All right, your chair now. You got this
Let's
figured
go to the
out.
beginning. Okay. So hi, I'm Jake. I'll be talking about the progress on the multicast to the browser work that we're doing, the project that we're doing. This is built on our on the 3 drafts we have active in the working group now, primarily the dorm, CBAC, and AMBI. I'll be touching on those, but most of my time will be spent on the sort of overall project status and where things are. So I'm going to be going over what we've done since the last presentation at the 2020 interim, where we stand on the implementation work we're doing, and what we've done in terms of outreach. I'll be going over some of the feedback that we got from operators in particular, and I'm probably going to spend most of my time on the 2 slides that are the current sort of thoughts I have on responding to the feedback. There's a couple of issues that have been raised, and I think they're pretty addressable by a reasonably easy to hack together approach. But I'm looking basically for kind of maybe some of you guys have a better idea on some of this. So I wanted to kind of give you a hint as to what I'm thinking, and see if anybody has any suggestions, and sort of give the reasoning on where that would go, and then go over a little bit of what I'm planning to do next, what we're planning to do next, and where we're headed with this. So I haven't done any actual updates to the drafts yet, although I got some good feedback from Dino, and I have a few changes pending, but mostly since when did we meet? April or March or so. It's been like implementation outreach work, and I haven't yet gotten around to updating the draft text. There's a few known things to put in there, and still seeking feedback from people. So the current status on the implementation: we've issued the intent to prototype for Chromium. We've refactored the API that was public, last July or so, like a year ago now, to use readable streams in the API, which is the way that Web Transport does it. And it's guarded with a command line flag, which is one of the requirements for doing these kinds of early stage experiments for where we are now. Hoping to try to check that in before too long. I don't know how the code review is going to go when that gets going, but you know, ideally that'll be somewhere before too long. It's possible that it won't be checked in still in November, but one can hope. Our internal POC, I guess, was successful. We're going ahead, obviously. We got the WebAssembly build to run inside the browser and produce video from our product line that does video with multicast. So that's all. We are go on that. We kind of have our proof of concept running. None of this is using Ambi or dorms or CBAC yet. It's just doing a basic native receive, but the sort of transport path is there. The CPU utilization is still not great, but it's adequate to the task for now. There will presumably be some updates to improve on that, hopefully at some point. I would say that carries some risk at this point. Like, we don't know yet where the issues are, but we think that they're mostly on the transport between the renderer and browser processes, so that by putting that in a shared memory transport, it should be okay. So there's just some like engineering work to do on that, but it looks tractable, I think. I've spun up a dorm server. It's running in Discoverable now. So you should be able to do the lookup as described in the dorms draft and get the SRV record to see where to connect to it. And it has CBAC data, not yet any Ambi config, but that that's using the CZNix JetConf implementation of RESTconf. And it's using, I think it's a slightly changed Yang model from what's in the drafts for dorms and CBAC. And the slight change was just because I think it was only to Ambi actually, because the crypto types changed, if I remember right. But that'll be part of the next draft update. We'll include the updated Yang model for that. But that all runs okay. It seems like it does what it's supposed to. And I have a script that'll, given an SG, will say what CBAC says the max bandwidth is, and I'll be trying to integrate that into the multicast receive platform that we're going to be using in the trials. Did a bunch of outreach to the operator community. We've had some 30-ish meetings with different ISPs, doing an architecture walkthrough. That was a little bit, well, that wasn't very much through the IETF effort, but with some advice, from a couple of you guys, I went to NANOG and presented there. That also led to the AppNec blog post that we put up. The response on this has been pretty good. So I might continue doing a little more on this front, just to answer all the questions people have. But that was pretty successful. People are pretty interested. One thing to mention is that people are recognizing the software and game delivery as a sort of key use case now. It's not just the live video use case. We're expecting to do some trials that start this year. Those are not nailed down yet, but we're still negotiating about that. And people have broadly been supportive of the general direction, although there is some feedback that I'll get into. We've also been doing outreach to content owners and making sure that kind of, that there's not major objections on that front as well. this includes, so most of the people we've talked to so far are video content owners, but we're also reaching out to some of the game and software delivery folks to see if we can get feedback and some engagement with them as well. One of our stretch goals, we're not sure if it'll happen, but we would love to be able to try a production delivery of some actual traffic during an A/B video test using our video streaming product, but delivering it over an AMT ingest path into a willing network with some willing content owner trying it. That's we consider that plausible, but there are several hoops to get through to see if we can do that. Most of the time, people are on the content owner side. They see the utility of this so far. Everyone we've talked to. So, the fact that we have an SDK right now, some people would consider that they're not going to do that, but most of the time they just look at that as a minus, but one that they could live with if it meant that we started getting progress down this path. And the intent. I mean, once the delivery is there, then it opens up options for for more open transports of it as well. But we haven't moved anywhere on trying to open our SDK yet, or write up the protocol that would do it. So there might be some transport layer work to get to before this is really ubiquitous, but we think that we're aiming toward the right first steps, hopefully, on this. So we did get some notes from operators about places where they've got concerns on our approach. Although in general, everyone we've spoken to has, with I think one exception, which, by the way, everyone we've spoken to is of course a biased sample, because those that we haven't spoken to are more likely to not care. But of those we did speak to, people generally are supportive. They want this to work. They recognize the need, and they think that there's approaches that are viable, probably. That said, there are some challenges, maybe just transitional challenges, but like the way that people use it today and what their networks are prepared to accept does not necessarily fit very well with this vision of using the global SG that is sort of sender owned, independent of the received network, that we've got right now. That's the anchor for the authentication and for the bandwidth metadata. So some of the specific challenges people have brought up is in some cases the access gear that they have is tightly limited on how many groups it will be able to forward. I was surprised to hear this. I'm looking for more details on it, but they're uncomfortable with just having it sort of attempt to forward whoever came in first from the from the homes that are trying to join some kind of global SG. In some cases, there's existing TV services that are using multicast, but what they're using is like these statically pinned groups. So there's no dynamic joining of groups anywhere in the network. It's almost more like a broadcast sort of setup with these statically assigned groups that have specific meanings, and those groups, at the receiver side, yeah, you join it or don't join it, but in the network part, there's nothing that's changing about the group join status as part of the forwarding, and this sort of helps make sure that the network is sufficiently stable. And then one of the other cases we encountered is that they're happy to give us access to a specific building, and that specific building has a bunch of machines that each machine has an IP. They would assign us one of the IPs. We could have dynamic multicast groups, SSM groups, but all the traffic has to come from an IP that goes into that building, or they're not going to they're not going to propagate it to that building. We asked whether this is a sort of business-driven constraint or a technical constraint, and it was business-driven. So it's not like fixing the technical side would address it. This is like, we're going to have to send it from sources that are specific to that network in order to get it transported across that network, although they are willing to transport the traffic. So having taken some of these comments, I had some, sorry, did somebody try to jump in there?
No, actually, Jake, my question is, so are they basically saying they want to do walled garden stuff? They don't want to do interdomain?
Well, they're not opposed to having the source come from outside, is what they're saying.
It sounds like they just built a walled garden right now.
They've got a walled garden right now, and they don't want to change that. So let me get to what I'm thinking as a solution. Now, I haven't written this up as a draft yet. Sorry about that. But I wanted to get early feedback if anybody has comments on it. So that's why I'm showing it here. So the solution I have in mind here is essentially to let them use their own, let them map it to the SG that they want to use within their network, right? So you just build sort of a translation layer at the ingest and at the ingress and egress. And in this case, what pins it together is this, I'm calling it Group Network Address Translation Service, which is NATS. And so this would be an HTTP, just an HTTP API. And what you'd have is at the access point, so the receiver is going to know and at the app layer discover the SG. It'll issue its SG subscribe, as usual. At the sort of, somewhere along the chain, either upstream of the access point or in the, in that home Wi-Fi router, or actually in the app I've got on the next slide. It's, just change it around. But the idea is that when you're trying to join this SG, that, oh, because I'm in this network, I'm going to talk to this network associated NATS service. The NATS service will tell me how to map the global SG to the local SG that I should use within this network. I'll issue, what I'll propagate as RPF is this local join. While it's inside the network, whatever your sort of topology looks like through that network, that's all unchanged. It'll propagate this sort of locally subscribed SG. At the ingest point, once you receive the join and leave for the SGs that are within that network, you'll ask that same NATS service, what's the mapping of the local network into that global space, and then you'll issue the ingest outside into the global subscribe over Dryad, or if you've got some other kind of connection, that's all fine. So the idea is just to sort of wrap this up within the network and do that sort of at the boundary translate, so that the network can do whatever they want inside, and they don't have to change what they're doing, and just let that happen. So most likely I'll try to write this up, assuming this addresses the issues that they've raised and that it becomes necessary to reach some networks. This might, not have to remain this way permanently, but it's probably okay if it does, I think.
So Jake,
yeah.
I have a question. I guess I'm struggling to understand. I could see them not wanting global sources, but if they are willing to have global sources, why do they care that the source address is a local source address or a global source address? What's so bad about using global source addresses? Because I don't understand what state dimension that would be causing heartburn.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure I fully understand it, but I do know that the same question actually came up I spent a little bit of time with Dino trying to see his Lisp approach to doing ingest. And if you remember, I think it was maybe Singapore, he talked about pulling AMT into a network over using Lisp. I forget what it was exactly, but it ended up rekeying the SG so that the source was the I forgot the term now. The you know, his
XTR.
right, the XTR that was doing the forwarding, because you need the RPF to find that thing in order
Yeah.
for it to propagate from there, right?
So that's what I'm thinking too. I mean, with this approach, I wouldn't say I know exactly why they're doing it, but I know what it's providing here, right? You have a fixed RPF inside your network, you know it's going to resolve. You have a single point of ingest now that you've basically engineered so that everything has to come and resolve to that point, which also gives you policy now. You can set it a single point of entry.
Right. Yeah,
Miles?
that's the idea that I'm
Hi.
understanding.
One of the reasons why some providers operators do not want to have to use the global sources in the network is relatively easy. If you have a 6 to 4 backbone where you only have BGP-free core, you don't want to ingest foreign IP addresses on your LSR sites.
Yes. That was Nils, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Nils.
Hi.
Yes. Thank you.
Though this use case didn't come from us, yeah. I just wanted to say,
Correct.
but I
No,
know this from discussions with other operators. I know the same problem or thinking. So that's one of the reasons why some do not want to have the global sources.
But how
Yeah,
do they
I think-
don't they have to worry about reaching those global sources via unicast?
When you do that via unicast and you transport it via MPLS, you have an LSP path for it. But when you are doing native multicast in a 6 to 4 backbone, you only have native IP routing on the LSR, and you typically do not retransmission all your BGP routes into your IGP.
Okay, so this becomes down to an RPF issue. And having trouble with getting PIM to run over MPLS LSPs. So if you don't support that, then you have to do it natively, and the routers underneath don't have those RPF routes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So honestly, whatever the reason, if this is the feedback they're giving, that yeah, we'll do it, but we want you to use our own groups because that's what we've got stood up. I mean, I'm okay with that, really. And this addresses that question as well. Just one other point I wanted to make is that if there's trouble deploying the sort of translation layer at the edge where they're trying to propagate the join, it's also possible through DNSSD to have the end application or an agent on the end device sort of do that translation so that the only thing coming out is a join for the local network as well, and that can be forwarded without having to deploy something on the end. So that's kind of my thinking on how I'm looking to change this. There's some complications I've left out for, like, I think there's some CBAC related sort of when you run out of groups, how are you going to do the group assignment? And you'll have to be able to say, well, no, you don't have any local assigned group for this, and sort of handle that. But I think that this approach is relatively simple, and I'll probably be doing it in at least one of the trials we're hoping to run. So I wanted to give a little heads up. The immediate problems that this can address that I know about are, there's specific local IP assignments within a network. There's maybe ASM only networks. It occurred to me that this also could work to handle if there's a network that is only transporting v6 or that's only transporting v4, and you're trying to join the opposite kind of group. Then you can do that translation at this same layer. There's no reason that the translation can't map between v6 and v4. And that the NATS service can maintain a population count and perform the sort of group assignment and make decisions about yes or no, should this one be joined, without having, it can have that population count information without having to propagate it through the network because it's operating locally. There might also be some applicability to things like beer signaling. I don't see any reason that you couldn't do a beer encapsulation this way as well, or to do it to integrate with the layer 1 sort of RF channels for this. So if you're going to be sending something, I think that a lot of these devices have some support for mapping specific groups into an RF channel already, but I don't know if there's going to be any applicability to being able to assign a sort of couple that inside the NATS service. But I think that's all like TBD, and I would hope only to leave that open as an extension path, not to put that into the first version of the service. So next steps on this. Yeah.
Another approach to consider. I'm wondering, just kind of thinking out loud. Are you aware of the BGP multicast draft in BES, which basically just turns BGP into a full-blown multicast routing protocol, and completely replaces PIM.
No, I was hoping that was there somewhere. I hadn't got around to reading it.
I'm wondering if, one that can help with the BGP free core, maybe, because you can get, though it wouldn't help your RPF problems underneath, if the next hop is an LSP. Though there are implementations that do support that. I mean, there's a thing called GTM, which enables you to do multicast over a BGP free core. But I'm wondering if that's not good enough, maybe there could be the translational aspect built into the BGP draft.
Maybe.
Yeah. There's the other comment on NATS is it seems like it could be buggy.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. Yeah, I mean, I think that if it's buggy, then you end up not getting a stream, or maybe you end up getting a wrong stream, but then the authentication fails if you're authenticating.
I'm sorry, that was a joke. NATS buggy.
Yeah. Well, that too.
Tough to market that one.
Fortunately, we're all engineers, so. If you've got a suggestion on a different name, that's fine. I'd love to have it. But any feedback you've got, please think it over, send it to me, because I'm probably going to write this if I don't have a better idea, just to make it so that all the operators that are interested have a good path to participate.
Maybe being a little more serious, maybe MNAT would be more of
pertinent.
I
thought of that.
Just because everybody knows what NAT is, and GNAT sounds like regular NAT is unicast NAT that we all know and love is global in some dimension. So maybe multicast NAT.
Yeah. I'll give it some thought. Like I said, it's not written, so it's easy to change names at this point. And you're right. We can bike shed on the name all day, but yeah, send me suggestions if you think something would be better. Any other questions? Great. So so my next steps, we are aiming to boil down our interested operators to 3 to 6 of them, and to try to do some trials to start this year. We've started sending out our proposal for how those trials would go, and we're aiming to get some buy-in from people. The rough plan is to use the multicast ingest platform. That's the same one I presented back when I started working on the Dryad stuff, or right before that, I think. And to add a CBAC capability to it, so that it would be using the global, the globally discoverable dorm server, and making choices about bandwidth allocation at the ingest point. We would like to integrate with some of the actual operator devices as well, so that they'll ideally, we're hoping to get somebody who's willing to kind of take that CBAC code and port it into driving their router's API. We think it's possible to do this by just managing the ACL in the router. So that CBAC can cut things off if you're oversubscribed just by pushing an ACL thing. We'll see if that works out. We don't really know, but that's kind of the direction we're aiming to head. At least one of the trials, assuming we do get buy-in, would probably include a prototype of the NATS or MNAT service that we think we'll do. I may or may not have to write that before I write the spec for it. But at some point, if that does seem like it makes it more approachable for people, I'll probably be bringing that a version of that spec back to this group. And then other next steps also include updating drafts, obviously, getting our Chromium experimental API checked in, and deferred for now because it's not on the critical path to getting the operator trials in place is AMBI. But that's obviously going to be necessary before we can even do like an origin trial in Chromium, just because you have to authenticate traffic from the network if you're going to run a real browser. And based on the feedback from Dino especially, it might be worthwhile to actually add the Alta work that we were talking about, to flesh that out into an actual wireline protocol, and even if it's a specific profile of it that just has like signed packets, individually signed packets that contain the hashes that are in AMBI, so that we can do this without having to do a live feed of the hashes that goes over HTTPS and has to do its own separate unicast fan out. So that might be something that we want to do just to sort of ease the deployability on that. But that's all going to be probably after the end of this year, because I'm going to be pretty busy on the trials, I think. So I think that's all I've got. Any other questions?
Well, just one bigger question. Have you gotten feedback? I mean, I think the 3 drafts, AMBI, CBAC, and dorms, the goal is to make multicast safe for the browser and get past the gateway or the gatekeepers. Have you gotten feedback thus far that this is good enough? If with this, yes, they will allow multicast into their precious browsers?
Nothing quite so firm. The authentication story, I mean, that was all the browser folks I've talked to. That's the first question. It's like, how do you authenticate this? And when I told them the scheme that we're using in AMBI and tried to just honestly describe it, They said that would work for authentication. There's often some further discussion about encryption, and privacy is a sort of unknown still, because there is some privacy, what do they call it? There's a fingerprinting footprint to the joining of flows from a browser, like from a web page. So this is a concern that we're not really. So I would say there's some risk on that front as well. That's not even technical risk, but sort of policy risk maybe. There's some concern that there could be ways for like malicious web pages to enable the identification of specific users to a network, for example, that could watch for it. So that's going to be a perhaps complicated question. There might be, what it might end up being is more like, the browser will have to ask permission in order to join, in order to enable the joining of multicast flows, and have a sort of, like the way cookies are, where you'd have a sort of thing that pops up that says, hey, this browser wants to join some flows. This could expose information, learn more here, right? If that's what it turns into, then I think there's still value in doing this. And, similar to the other kind of permission granted stuff, it would be possible to sort of configure it for the, the sites that you go to often, that kind of thing. And for people to have different sort of levels of protection that they're interested in. It also might be possible that it would only be necessary when you're in an incognito mode, and it would be disabled entirely if you're on tour or something like that. Totally makes sense, right? But I think there's a lot of unknowns on that front. But those are the main concerns I've heard raised with it so far. Outside that, yeah, the authentication scheme has been reasonably well received. They think that as long as it's actually anchored properly, it should be okay.
So should we be, is there a formal, request for review, or can we get, those folks to review these drafts? I guess, my concern would be, we go through this process, we come up with these drafts and docs, and we think they're good. And then, the whole purpose is so that we can get into the browser party. And then the person at the front door of the browser says, no, that's not good enough. So is there a way to, a way to request review so that we know we're on the right track?
That's a good question. So there is for me, certainly. So there's a sort of, in W3C, there's a tag process. Like maybe we should reach out to a W3C liaison and ask for advice. That would be a reasonable idea, I think. I've been sort of like, there's this whole reasonably well documented path for how individuals are supposed to try to get things adopted by W3C, but I don't know if it's any different if a working group chair acting on behalf of a working group at IETF makes a more formal request for it and provides a support, or if I just sort of include a note to that effect when I'm making the request.
Let me see. How about Warren? Do you have a thought about how best to request review from those folks?
Because I don't participate in W3C, but I could probably poke around and find someone. But it kind of sounds like the proposed, wow, they've got an infinite mirror thing, proposed idea of, yeah, I don't know. But Like, I think this idea. I mean, it seems like people who really participate in W3C might be able to just ask nicely, like, this is how an individual does it. Do you give any special priority to the IETF or a working group? I believe we do have a liaison with the W3C. We could go through that. That feels like it might be more formal and heavyweight than we want. Sorry, I don't have a useful answer. I'm just kind of rambling.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we could have a conversation with the liaison. Just to,
All right.
I would hate to do all this work and then discover it wasn't good enough.
I think that's been a risk the entire time. But well, I think like anything, you know, one of the things we're asking for with the trials is permission to use people's names, both the content owners and the network operators. So I think once we get some of those nailed down, then we'll start to be able to say, you know, here's the coalition we have that's trying to make this happen, and that, you know, yeah, at that point, maybe I would also include, you know, MBONED asking in a formal sense for support. Like if I'll if anybody says like who's interested in making this happen, then I'll well, I guess at this point I don't have any consensus, but besides adoption of the draft, so I shouldn't, you know, state that.
Take it home in the room.
Sure.
Got the hum? Who thinks it should be adopted?
Wait, I thought we already adopted these drafts. What are we
Who
humming?
said it was ready? Not all of them. Was there one missing?
No, I haven't written any draft yet, so let's not do a hum on that just yet.
This is the problem you're going to be approaching. Okay, sorry, man.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes and trying to pay attention.
So the question at this point is more like, you know, I guess what I'm not sure. I haven't done as much with the W3C engagement process as maybe what we should do is in November have a action plan for making sure it gets on their list, on the tag list of things to consider for real. You know, and maybe that would include updates to the drafts to make sure they're in good enough shape. I think there's a few TBDs in there that, you know, if you're going to raise things in a formal sense, then they probably should be done or done enough. So maybe there should at least be a draft update on that before we do, and you know, maybe a few more reviews on the drafts that are there. Yeah, I can bring back a report of any roadblocks that it would be helpful to have formal, you know, a formal consensus on, you know, in November, if that, or on the list, if that, you know, as I encounter them.
Okay.
I feel like right now the barriers are more technical. There's still some skepticism as to will this actually work, and I'm hoping that the trials will address part of that. You know, I don't think we're going to get away from the risk that people won't like this, but that's no different than, you know, multicast was in the first place. So.
Okay, any other questions for Jake? Anybody have anything else they want to bring up today? Okay. Well, I would say, first of all, we had awesome attendance for the last meeting on the last day. I think this is in 20-something years of going to IETFs. This is the first time I've ever been in a working group meeting at the end of on the last on Friday afternoon. So maybe there are some benefits to being virtual. If you're going to be stuck on a with Friday on the Friday agenda, I guess it's good to be a virtual Friday agenda.
Yeah, especially when afternoon starts at 8 a.m. I mean, we can start drinking now, right?
Well, our European friends have you guys are ahead of us. It's happy hour for you guys. So.
All right. Well, thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jake. Great work
Thank you,
again.
Jake.
Appreciate it.
Cool. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything to say, thanks for coming, and we'll see how it goes for next time.
Okay. See you in virtual Bangkok.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, bud. Cheers. Bye-bye.
See ya.